Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. For millions of businesses, Shopify helps you do your thing however you cha-ching. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout as Kim Kardashian Skims. Sign up now for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Gary Sprouse, author of Highway to Your Happy Place. And Gary and I are going to be talking today on the topic, the blueprint to creating your happy place. Yes, we all should have a happy place that we go to when we're stressed. And Happy Gilmore is one of the movies that showcase that. So we're going to have a great conversation. Welcome, Dr. Sprouse.
Now I'm going to have to go watch that movie again. Talks about, right? Yeah. I'll have to reference it in the next book.
You haven't seen Happy Gilmore?
Oh, no, I've seen it. I need to re-see it, right? Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing about it is, a lot of times the universe just sends me things that I need. But when I was putting together our, show outline, I said, you know what? I have to go and look for this movie, The Happy Place. And guess what? The very couple of days later, it was on Netflix. It's still on Netflix now, I think. So
yeah, I like it. It's a great movie.
You can watch it. So I am up to date on what it says. So
yeah, there you go. I like the hockey player. That good place.
That's right. So it's amazing. All right, guys. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Dr. Sprouse was born in 1956. He grew up in the Mid-Atlantic region in a rural house with his parents and 4 siblings. After graduating from George Washington University, Dr. Sprouse set up his medical practice in an undeserved area in the eastern shore of Maryland. During his years in practice, he has worked hard to be a relatable physician to his thousands of patients. He has a lot of stress throughout the years and has employed his own stress reducers. He sings karaoke, plays pickup basketball, travels, reads, and loves to dress up for Halloween. He is leading seminars on stress reduction all over the world. There is an online course for those who can't attend in person. He feels his unique and varied background and his skill for translating complex medical issues for his patients are the right combination to help people live a better life and spend more time in their happy place, which is what we're going to talk about today and is the subject of Dr. Sprouse's book. Now, I'm not going to ask you about how you found your happy place, Gary. You can put it into the conversation later on. But what I want to start off with is, in your book, you talk about the 6 prominent stressors that keep us from our happy place. So maybe we can dissect them individually. One of them is worry. The next one is guilt. The third one is regret. The fourth one is boredom. The fifth one is low self-esteem. And the sixth one is being overwhelmed. How do we navigate these stressors to get to our happy place?
All right. So here's what I found. Excuse me. So when I was talking to my patients and they would come in, and here's one of my patients, she go, Dr. Sprouse, I'm worried that I worry too much. And I go, yeah, but then you probably do, right? And it's like, but I said to her, so tell me what worry is. And she looked at me like, yeah, I got this. And then when she started trying to define it, she was like, wait, this is way more complicated than I thought. And as I talked to other patients, it was the same thing. And I'm like, you can't define what it is, then how can you possibly fix it, right? I mean, you can do some generic things, but it's not going to work as well as if you know what it is that you're dealing with. So the first thing that I had to do is figure out, okay, what is worry? And as I explored it, I was like, well, wait a second. To worry, you have to be able to look into the future. Well, no other organism on earth can do that. We're the only ones that can do that. So then I started, as a doctor, I'm used to saying to patients, hey, you have diabetes, you have high blood pressure. Here's this great medicine, and it's going to work really well, but it could have some side effects. And so then my job has been to maximize the benefits and minimize the side effects. So when I started looking at our skill to be able to envision the future, I was like, wait, the side effect of being able to envision the future is that you then have to worry about what might happen. So then I started looking, going, wait, most of the stresses that humans feel, most of the things that keep us from our happy place are actually side effects to our skills. So my dog and I, Zoe, she's a 15-year-old rescue dog. We watch the TV, we watch the news together, and I'm sitting there going, ooh, right? And she's just laying there like hanging out. I'm like, aren't you worried? What, don't you see it? And it's like, because my dog can't envision the future. Yeah. So she literally can't worry. So our psychologists tell us, well, just live for today. And you're like, well, that's a nice sentiment. First off, it's impossible as a human to live for today because we spend a lot of time in the future. What are we going to do? What's it going to be like? Is the hurricane coming? What am I going to do in retirement? What happens when my kids grow up? Like, we spend a lot of time in the future. So it's impossible to live for today. And second off, wait, why would I want to give up my incredible skill of being able to envision the future because it has a side effect? So the book is about, hey, let's keep the skill and get rid of the side effect.
Yes. Okay. So we talked about worry. What about guilt? Why does guilt keep us from our happy place?
All right. So here's what I've been doing through this whole book is gone, hey, we need to define what guilt is before we can start trying to fix it, right? So guilt has to do with our ability to determine right from wrong. Well, again, my dog does not do that, right? She doesn't go, oh, I had an accident on the rug. I'm sorry, right? I did a bad thing. Like, no, there's no guilt. It's like, it just is, right? Because she doesn't have right from wrong. So we have developed right and wrong. And so then what happens to people is they've done something. And here's the key. So guilt is about something that happened in the past. Mm-hmm. Like, it happened. So you can't change it. So literally people can beat themselves up forever over something that happened because you can't undo it. So my goal is not to get rid of guilt because guilt is what society uses as the stick to say, hey, don't do that, right? So when we see somebody who's, committed a crime, they're in front of the judge and they're crying and they're falling, like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry. We go, okay, he at least got the message that was wrong. What we don't like is when someone gets in front of the judge and goes, oh, no big deal. I killed somebody. It's not that big a deal. And you're like, wait, what? Like, you don't get it, right? So you should be feeling guilty. Yeah. So what I see is that we don't like people who don't feel guilty because they're not shapeable. But guilt itself was meant to shape our behaviors. And so when we do something that's broken a rule, we should feel some guilt. But if guilt is designed to shape our behavior, as long as you don't do it again, then it did what it was supposed to do. So now you don't have to feel guilty anymore. So like by going, okay, like see this when I deal with patients who have alcohol problems, they feel very guilty about all the things they did to the people in their life, right? I go, but are you drinking now? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, then, yeah, then you don't need to. So like you may, maybe a touch of guilt to make sure you don't do it again, but you don't need to beat yourself up over and over and over again till you're a pulp and you feel horrible about yourself. No, it's not. It's like you've changed. You did what guilt was supposed to do. So now you don't need to feel that as much. And the second part of that is learning how to forgive and how to forgive others, but also how to forgive yourself, which is the hardest person to forgive, right?
Right. Well, that's good. I like this particular one because you're correct. I mean, I will say that God put in us a conscience. And unless you're a psychopath, then you have a conscience. So you feel bad when you've hurt somebody. You feel bad when you do something that you consider is wrong, right? And if you can't feel bad about it, then we've got labels for them. Narcissistic, psychopath. I was watching...
like them.
Right, we don't like them. I was watching Dateline last night, and this woman her husband had an affair, and she had this premeditated murder plan for 2 years to kill him. And then when they found her, because she tried to pin it on the person that the guy had an affair with. So when they found out it was her, looked like she was genuinely shocked that she got caught and genuinely saying that it wasn't her. And how can this be? I didn't see any remorse in her. So I labeled her a psychopath right away. Because you can't plan something for 2 years and not think that it's wrong. I mean, I didn't understand her response at all. It was like she was innocent and they were liars, but we know that it was her. The case was so, tightly shut that there could be nobody else other than her. And I labeled it. So I'm not sure if she had any guilt or any remorse, or she was trying to hide it because she got caught. But yeah, that is, you talked about, guilt about doing something wrong. She had no guilt about shooting her husband in his bed. She shot him in his bed.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole, but here's one of the things that I had to learn was like, how do we decide what's right and wrong? Because one of the things that I've realized, like in this country, we grew up with certain rules, like, okay, this is right, this is wrong. But other countries have whole different societies and different groups have whole different reasons for what they consider right and wrong. And so one of the things that we get into in our country is that we try to impose our definition of right and wrong on other societies. And that gets us into trouble, right? So it turns out that there's actually 4 things that have to be defined before you can decide right and wrong, because literally anything you can think of that you say is wrong could be right in a different group. So if I went to an AMA convention in Chicago and took a gun and shot somebody, I'd get in trouble, right? But if I'm a SEAL team member and I go and shoot somebody in a foreign country, I get a medal. And you're like, wait, I just killed somebody. Wait, what's the difference? So the difference is I'm in a different group. So you have to define who the group is. You have to define what the rules are for that group. You have to decide what the goal of the group is. And then the last one is sometimes there's iffy, borderline issues. So you have to define a judge. So when you take those 4 things, now you can start saying, oh, this is right, this is wrong. And when you do something wrong, you're like, well, okay, what group am I in? Am I in the right group? Maybe I need to be a different group. So if I really like guns, then I should be in the NRA. If I don't like guns, being in that group, probably not the right place for me to be, right?
Yeah. I actually never thought of that analogy that you just gave, that, yeah, it's okay to kill someone when you're in the army, but it's not okay to kill somebody when you're not in the army. But you're right. It's the same thing. And I wonder if, one of the reasons that people come back from the war with PTSD is because maybe they think in their head that was wrong too, even though they're in a group that says it's supposed to.
Absolutely. People have, they've grown up and they have a certain morality. And when they get in a war situation, which is a totally different environment, all the rules that they live by get broken. And that, yes, it messes people up for sure.
Right. Okay. So let's do one more before we move on. What about regret? So,
go ahead.
Yeah, regret means that you should have done something that you didn't do. So it's not really guilt or worry. So let's explore that one for a minute.
So this is one of the things that I had to figure out, right? So it turns out many people will talk about regret and guilt as if they're the same. And they're not. They're very different. Well, they're different. Okay. So they're both based in the past. So regret is I did something. Guilt is I did something in the past, right? They're not changeable. So you can't undo whatever it is that you did, right? And they're both meant to shape your behavior as you move into the future. So they have these similarities. Here's the difference. So guilt is I did something wrong. I broke a rule, whether it was written or unwritten, right? Regret is I made a bad decision. That's way different. So I use myself as an example. So when I had a computer system and I had a new office manager, and she's like, this really old system, we got to get a new one. I'm like, okay. So she goes, here's a really good one. I know how to use it. That's great. I said, but none of my other staff knows how to use this. So like, it's okay. I'm going to be here. I love this job. I'm going to be here forever. I turned down a job that paid me $10 an hour more. So I'm here. So I signed the paperwork and we get the computer's coming. And she goes, oh, Dr. Sprouse, I have to tell you, I just got a job that pays me $15 an hour more. So I had to take it. And I'm like, what? And now, of course, I'm going, then my staff's looking at me like, why did you make that decision? You now have this computer that nobody knows how to use. It's expensive. And you're like, oh, right. So I could regret my decision, right? Because now it doesn't look so good, right? But what I've realized then about regret is because you've made a bad decision or you've gotten a bad outcome. So now you have to go back and go, wait, given the information that I had at the time, that decision was a good decision. So because the environment changed, it didn't make the decision bad at the time. It made the decision. So it's not worth regretting because I made a good decision based on the information I had. Because when you're making decisions, you're looking into the future. And obviously we can't predict this future 100%. Right. So what I realize is when we're making our decisions, there's a process that we go through. So guess what? I changed the process. So the next time I bought a system, the office manager had to sign her name in blood. No, I'm just kidding. But you get my point. I changed it, then I made sure that my other staff members knew what was going on. In case somebody left, right? I tweaked my process. So the decision, and this is why as we get older, we get better, right? Because we have been tweaking the process over years and we go, oh yeah, I made that mistake before, not doing that again, right? So again, regret is shaping our behavior, shaping our decision-making process so that we can get better outcomes.
Yes, I hear you.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Kim Kardashian's Skims or Justin Bieber's Drew House, you think about a great product or a cool brand with brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, including Skims and Drew House, that business is Shopify. Shopify helps you do your thing however you cha-ching. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business today and get the same checkout as Kim Kardashian's Skims. Sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/transform to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/transform.
I've been a realtor for over 24 years, and it breaks my heart to see my clients get denied housing, whether they're trying to buy a home or trying to rent an apartment due to poor credit. When your credit is less than ideal, your options become limited. You may face rejection when trying to purchase a home, and when renting, you may have to settle for a less than ideal apartment or pay a hefty deposit up front. Some people think that no credit is good, but it's not. No credit is the same as poor credit. So what's the solution? Build up your credit so you can become a homeowner, get that nice apartment, get a good rate on a vehicle, or even get your dream job. Yes, top employers check your credit. Kickoff simplifies credit building with plans that are the fastest, easiest way to safely jumpstart your credit, making what feels impossible possible and no credit check required. Kickoff users with credit under 600 increased their credit by an average of 28 points in the first month. Kickoff has been praised by major finance, lifestyle, and tech publications as a smart way to build credit fast. Kickoffs have a 4.9 rating on the App Store and over 100,000 rave reviews. Build your credit fast with Kickoff, the best credit building plan to jumpstart your credit. Get your first month for $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/transform today. That's getkickoff.com/transform. Must sign up via getkickoff.com/transform to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only. Subject to approval. Average impact of 28-point increase in the first month based on Equifax Venture Score 3.0. Changes to Kickoff customers with starting credit below 600 who made their first on-time payment between January 2021 and March 2024. Payment and credit activity outside Kickoff can have an impact on your credit. Terms and conditions may apply. Offer subject to change. Individual results may vary.
One that popped into my mind is, when you're younger and we'll talk like a guy, or maybe a guy or a girl. Someone comes into your life and you think they're not good enough for you, or wherever you're at this point in time, you figure you can do better. And then you go on and you never find better and you regret that you didn't take them up on it. So sometimes it's not the decisions that you made, but sometimes it's things that you didn't make. And to me, in my line of work, regret is usually things that you don't take advantage of, that you regret. Like they say, when you're doing the rocking chair test when you're 80, you're always going to regret the things you didn't do.
Oh, yeah. Well, but those are all decisions, right? So here's one of the things that I learned, right? So when I'm doing these seminars, there's usually a mix of men and women, right? So I would say, write down something you feel guilty about. And they would all go, the women would all go, brrr. And the men were looking at the ceiling going, I don't know, right? I'm like, what is this, right? So, and most of the women would write down that what they felt guilty about is not spending more time with their kids. Right. Like almost every one of the women said that, right? And I was like, but that's not guilt. You didn't do anything wrong. You made a choice and you didn't like the outcome from it, right? So it was really more regret. But then I was talking to another host and she's like, well, that's not true, Dr. Sprouse. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, because I'm a woman, right? She said that the unwritten rule in our society is that women should be taking care of kids. So when you're not doing that, then you are breaking a rule. And you're like, ooh. So there's some overlap, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay, well then, yeah, that kind of makes, being a guy, I'm like, you're right, that makes sense. So like as a woman, you can feel some guilt about breaking that rule of raising your kids and some regret about maybe I should have changed my life balance to be more with my kids.
Kids, right? I get you. So that's awesome. All right. So our conversation today is happy place. So give me the bridge. So you got worry, you got guilt, you got regret, you got boredom, low self-esteem, overwhelm. So you're in these emotions, which are, the negative emotions. So obviously you can't get to your happy place, which is going to be in the positive emotions like peace and joy and those type of things. So your work is getting us there. So how do we bridge?
Okay. So here's what I found. So again, I'm talking to my patients and I go, so I'm writing this book on how to have less stress, the highway to your happy place. And they're going, I need that book. And I'm like, okay, but where would you be if you didn't have so much stress? And they look at me like, I don't know. I never got that far. I only envisioned myself having less stress, right? So then that made me, because I'd actually written the book. And then I go, wait, if we don't even know where we're trying to get to, well, how are you going to get there, right? I mean, I'm writing a map out and I don't even know where we're going. So I had to go back and rewrite a section on what is our happy place. So I envision we're standing on the riverbank and we're on the stressed out side. And on the other side is this beautiful castle. That's our happy place, right? So here's what I realized as I went through that work, is that everybody's happy place is different, but the rooms are the same, right? The blueprints, the architecture is the same. So everybody has a dining room and a kitchen. What furniture they put in there, what color they painted, what pictures are on the wall, different. But the room, same, right? So what I did was I identified the rooms. And when I did that, I'm like, well, heck, if these are the rooms, then anybody can get to their happy place now that we know what it is, right? So when I define it, there's usually 6 things that I talk about. So the first one, and you mentioned this already, like contentment or peace. And it's sort of like the balance between the positive and negatives in your life. And then the second one is having pleasurable events, which includes fun and includes love. And it's like, but they're short-lived. Like and then they go. Like when I graduated from medical school, I was like, right? Yeah, it was like exciting, right? But then somewhere along the line, it comes back down. You're like, oh yeah, I had that good time, but now it's back to my level of contentment, right? Then the third one is anticipating pleasure. So as I told you, I'm getting ready to go to the Dominican Republic on a missions trip, right? And I'm like, we've been planning this for like 3 months. So I've had 3 months ago, oh, this is going to be awesome. We're going to help all these people. We're going to build this. It's going to be great. And when in my anticipation, there's never any problems with my luggage. The people there are going to be nice. I'm not going to get Montezuma's revenge. It's like everything's awesome, right? So anticipation is our skill in being a vision of the future, but it can go on for a really long time. So unlike a pleasure, like if I go to a really nice restaurant, wow, okay, so for an hour I'm enjoying my meal and enjoying the ambiance. But thinking about God, I could be thinking about the restaurant for a month. How nice is that, right? So I get these pleasurable things for a month. So then the next one is gratitude. And this is one of the reasons I travel out of the country. Because when you go to other countries and you see how other people live, when you come back to this country, oh, you are filled with gratitude. Like you have no idea how easy we have it because we tend to take things for granted. And then the next one is fulfillment. And so fulfillment is based on a couple things. So it has to do with giving. So when you're giving to other people, it actually gives you pleasure. Learning, because we're a very curious organism. So learning is actually a very pleasurable thing. And it's one of the things I like about being a doctor is you get to learn all the time. And now that I've retired, so I retired last year, and it's like, but now I get to learn about how to help people have less stress. So and I have more time now. So I've been reading like crazy, right? So it's cool. Then the next one is having a purpose in life. And so for me, my purpose has always been helping people get healthier, right? Now my ship has been, I still have a purpose. Now I have a book, Highway to Your Happy Place, and I'm trying to help people have less stress. Now I'm telling you, my wife, so she did the billing for my office. So she's a little bit younger than I am. But when I stopped billing, she stopped having a job because there wasn't anything to bill, right? She struggled. So her purpose in life, she's not sure what it is yet, right? She's like, she's trying to be a beekeeper. She's trying to do like a garden. She's playing pickleball, right? So she's got these different things in her life, but they're not fulfilling to her. And I'm watching her struggle. So sometimes she's okay, and then other times she's really despondent. So I was listening to a guy, and he talked about this Japanese term called ikigai. And you're like, okay, what is that? So he goes, you have to draw these 4 circles. Like, what am I good at? What do I like doing? What would help society? And what can I make money at? And you fill out these circles. And wherever they intersect, that's your ikigai, right? And I'm like, ooh, I like that. So we did that with her, and she came up with this. She likes to cook, and she's good. Trust me, she's good at it. But at cooking, I'm good at eating. It's a good match, right? Yes, it's it. And it was definitely, we were like, how we can do that to help society? She's like, I don't want to open a restaurant. That's crazy, right? And I go, and we're retired, so I don't even need to worry about the money part, right? So then we decided, she could work at a food kitchen where she's giving to other people. She's cooking. She's helping people. It's like, she likes to, it's like, there's her ikigai. So we didn't have to find the right forum for to do that, but that's the idea, right? And then the other piece to the fulfillment, and this is something I just added, which is our identity. Like we all have this identity. And when you don't know what your identity is, that's really distressing. And I watch these athletes that have been like a basketball player from the time they were 5 years old to the time when they're 35, right? 30 years of playing basketball. And then at 35, they're like, yeah, you're too old. You can't do this anymore. And you're like, wait, what? Like, what am I supposed to be now, right? And so I went through this as a doctor. I was like, wait, as a doctor, like I spent, 11 years training to be a doctor, and I was a doctor for 38 years, and now I'm retired. Like, well, what's my identity? Now, fortunately for me, I had actually spent some time reevaluated my identity. So now I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm a karaoke singer. I'm a real estate investor. I'm an author. Right. So I have all these, I'm still a doctor, but I have all these other identities. So I'm not floundering with like, what am I supposed to do now? And then so that's fulfillment. Then the last piece, I call it CASH, and it's an acronym. So CASH stands for connected, accepted, feeling safe, and having hope. And I think that we all need CASH. And what I see, when I was in practice, I took care of patients that had heroin addictions, and it's like people with addictions need it even more because they've been ostracized. They've been pushed to the edges of society. They've been like, oh, you're a dirty drug addict, or you, and it's like, so everybody needs CASH. And so when you put CASH into that happy place, right? So when you take those 6 things, you're like, what? Those are achievable. I can do those things. And then I'd be in my happy place. Yay, right? So then the goal is to get rid of the stuff that's keeping us from being in that happy.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Yeah. You mentioned a couple of times, let's get to put a pin on it right now, that we're the only species that can actually has imagination. So we can worry about things, we can anticipate things. There's people that use imagination well and people that use it wrong. The people that are poor and unhappy are using it wrong. The people that are like I had a gentleman on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how he worked every day, 11 hours a day, on his imagination of making. I don't remember what the number he put in, but he ended up making like $980,000 a month. So it's how he manifested. And what did he do? He said he changed his whole who he is and who he's showing up as, and walking in this person that's making, let's say, $500,000 a month. And I'm doing some of the work, because whenever I talk to someone on the show that is, that I feel that I want to learn from, I continue. So right now I'm taking his challenge, and he's saying, whatever you made a year, bring it into a month. So how do you do that? You use your imagination, you create. So yeah, this imagination thing, you can use it to become wealthy. Because that's really the only way that you can achieve greatness, because whatever is in your hand, you have to first have it in your head. But yeah, the people that worry, the people that stay in the negative emotions and all that, is the people that are unhappy, that are stressed, that are depressed, and things like that. So I like a couple of things that you say is anticipation. Well, that is great. You feel good when you're anticipating things, right? And then you talk about the gratitude. Gratitude is one of the top emotions, because one of the ways you manifest is you're grateful to God for already giving it to you. That's how you do it. You're saying thank you. And you haven't even received it yet. But in your mind, you're saying thank you, and you are, imagining it. And yes, purpose and fulfillment is big, because even if you have $980,000 a month, right? It's cash money, not your acronym, real hard cash. But if you're not in purpose or you're not in fulfilled, you're not going to be in your happy place. Exactly. The money is going to be like a noose around your neck. You know what I mean? It wants to string you up. So yes. So I love what you were, how to get to your happy place. And it's using the same faculties that got you in the dumps in the first place. Your imagination, right?
Yeah. Well, so when I talk about worry, so one of the things I talk about is the term I use is realistic optimism. So turns out every organism in the earth is set up to keep their environment safe, right? So the problem that humans get into is so my dog, her environment is our house. Wherever she can smell, wherever she can hear, that's her environment. So if a new dog comes across our yard, she's like, right, and she gets all upset, right? But then as soon as the dog leaves, then she goes back to laying down there like a rug, right? So for humans, the problem we get into is our environment isn't just my house. My environment now is Maryland, and it's the United States, and now it's the earth. And so I know what's going on in Ukraine and Israel, like on a daily basis. I'm like, what? Like they're literally thousands of miles away, but I'm feeling a reaction now because I'm like, oh yeah, right. So our environment is the whole earth. Oh, but it gets worse than that. Our environment is the universe, because how many movies have you seen where aliens are coming to attack us? And it's like, so now we have to, where an asteroid is coming to blow us up, right? And it's like, so now our unit, so our...
By the way, that's someone's imagination.
Yeah, yes. So our environment is the earth and the universe. Oh, and it's future. So it's all that and the future. So the future is so real to us. It's an environment. And so worry is trying to keep that environment safe. And so the way you do that is by focusing on all the bad things that can happen. So if you're in a room and there's 10 people trying to give you $1,000, but there's one person in the corner with a machine gun, so who do you pay attention to, right? You pay attention to the machine gun, because it doesn't matter if I have $10,000 if I'm dead from the guy with the machine gun. Right. So worry is a natural thing because we're using that skill of keeping our environment safe and projecting it into the future. But my key then is, okay, so we have the ability to choose. So like, I don't have to focus on the bad things. I can pay attention to the guy with the machine gun. But if he's got it down by his side and there's a clip on and there's no bullets in it, okay, well, I got it, right? So now I can, so what I can choose to do is say, instead of focusing on all the bad things that can happen, and I ask patients, tell me bad things that could happen. And literally go, like, they got 20 things like in 5 seconds. And then I go, tell me all the good things that can happen to you. And they're like, well, okay, well, no, that would never. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah. So there's no balance, right? The realistic optimism is like, look, the optimism part is I'm going to focus on good things happening, which then makes me feel good right now, right? But then there's a realism to it. And the realism is, okay, well, bad things can happen, so I can't ignore them. I can't deny that a bad thing can happen. So what can I do? Oh, well, then I can now plan. But I can plan without fear. Because fear is where the problem comes in, right? Mm-hmm. So then I developed a second tool called a worry sheet or worry organizer. And it says, like, what is it I'm worried about? Like, so I had a lady who was worried about breast cancer. And I'm like, then why? And so it turns out her mom and her sister both had breast cancer. So then the next column was like, well, how likely and how dangerous? So in her case, she came in saying, well, 100% chance I'm going to get breast cancer and 100% chance I'm going to die. Right? Then the next column is, well, what can I do about it to not get it? But when I went through that third column where they're like, well, wait. You're now asking the expert, the doctor. I'm going to give you the statistics. It turns out that if you have a family history of breast cancer, your chances are 15%. She's like, wait, 15? Like, I thought it was 100. Like, no, it's 15. I go, and if you find it early, you're going to have an 85% chance of being cured. And you're like, so to her, it was amazing to watch her physical posture change because I just gave her life back. Yeah. So then we went through, like, what can we do to make it not happen? Mammogram, self-exam, BRCA genes, blah, blah, blah. And then the last column, which is that place where people can plan, is like, okay, let's go to the worst case scenario and I get breast cancer. Well, what can I do? Well, okay, well, I can have researched where the best cancer centers are in the country. I can make sure my insurance is paid up, my health insurance is paid up. I can make sure I have a life insurance policy. I can make sure I have a will that's set up. I can make sure my husband and my sister have guaranteed me that they're going to take care of my kids, right? So now, when you have all these things set up, well, what is there to fear now? Like, you just planned, but without fear. And then if you wake up in the middle, like, oh, I'm going to get breast cancer, you can go back because it's written down now. And you go, yeah, do I have anything to add to this? No. Okay, now I can go back to sleep.
But my circle back on that is, now that you've got a plan, let's use your analogy just now. Now that you've got a plan that you're not really fearful, but can you get to a happy place when you're thinking that there's a 15% chance that I will get breast cancer and I will die early, and then my kids would have to be without their mom? Because if you're putting all those possibilities down, how do you tell them to be happy?
Well, okay, so one thing, talking about self-esteem, right? Like we take for granted a lot of stuff, right? And so one of the reasons we end up with low self-esteem is because we're not keeping track of what good things are happening to us. So here's my, I wake up in the morning and I just get 10 points for opening my eyes. 10 points. What? I'm still alive. Yay. Right? Then I go, oh, I have running water. Another 10 points. Oh, there's food in the refrigerator. Another 10 points. Oh, my wife is still alive. Another 10 points. Oh, and I'm living in a safe place. So I just got 50 points by just opening up my eyes, right? So for that lady, what I would say to her, don't focus on, hey, I'm going to get breast cancer, 15% chance. Focus on, I'm alive and I'm going to be grateful for every minute that I have. In a lot of ways, it actually makes life better because you realize, hey, this could all go away. It's one of the reasons I retired. Like my brother, he's a year younger than I am, and he retired. And literally 6 months later, he got diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer. Now, here's the good news, right? His PSA, which is supposed to be 4, his was 2,000, right? But now he's had treatment and it's down to 0.5. So his PSA is lower than mine, right? Which is nice, but I like that. Like, I don't want to keep alive.
So that's good.
Yeah, no, it's really good, right? Mm-hmm. But it made me realize I got to, life is limited. So I got to take advantage of what I can do now. So literally, I retired within the next year going, okay, like I've worked enough now. My wife was like, we have enough money. We can just go hang out now. You don't need to keep doing this. She's like, you know what? Yeah, it's time for me to enjoy it. So now we can go on mission trip to the Dominican Republic and we can go to Canada to the Rockies or wherever, right? So,
yes.
What I would say to her is,
still healthy. I've heard that story.
Don't focus on the negative of you can get breast cancer. Focus on the positive that you're alive and you have kids and you have a loving husband and right? So,
yes, I love that. And there's a scripture that says, why worry that you can't change anything anyway?
Well, that's not true. See, you can. That's what the worry organizer is about. There are things you can do, right? Like if hurricanes coming, there's lots of things you can do.
Right.
The house is prepared, right? So what I see is sometimes, and this happens more for men than women, is they go, oh, that's never going to happen. And so then they don't prepare and then they get into trouble, right? I also see that leads to a lot of fights because, and this is in general, women tend to worry, men tend to minimize. Right. So they get together in the beginning because the lady's going, oh, I'm worried this is going to happen. He's like, no, it's never going to happen. And you're like, oh, that makes me feel so much better. But over time, she goes, oh, I'm worried. And he goes, no, that's not going to happen. She goes, well, that's what you said last time. And it did happen. And it's like, so now they end up in a fight. So that you have to be careful. And that's where the word organizer helps because now you start talking about statistics. So then you go, well, how likely is it the plane's going to crash? Well, 1 in a million. So you can't say it's never going to crash.
Right.
But you can say, well, the chances are so low that I really
You can say it's the safest form of travel, but if it does crash, you die for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. See, there you go, right? So it's not how often, it's how dangerous too, right? So those two things go together. But now you start talking about statistics because then it becomes, instead of you're a jerk and I hate your guts, it's like, what's the statistics? Because that's a whole lot less emotion.
Right. Yes. Well, that's good. Yeah, but you're right. Instead of worrying, I think that's a circle back from this particular point. Instead of worrying, because worrying, like the Bible says, you can't change any kind of gray on your head. Why worry about it? But the things that you can do, that's in your control, right? Prepare for the hurricane, save your money, how like the woman that thinks that she can have breast cancer, make sure that you've got health insurance, make sure she does everything that she can to live a healthy lifestyle. Those are certain things that you can put in place. But whether you get breast cancer or not, it's up to God, right? It's pre-written, right? And worrying about it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't make it not happen. Right.
Now, here's what I say. I don't want people to stop worrying because I do want them to pay attention that it could be some bad things happening, but I want them to worry efficiently. Where people get into trouble is they go over and over and over and over and they ruin their lives with fear of what might happen when it hasn't happened. It's like, So it's like, So what I talk about is worry efficiently. And that's where realistic optimism and this tool, the worry organizer, come in. Because now you can look into the future, you can focus on the good things to feel good now, but you can plan for the bad things without all that fear. And you have it done efficiently because it's done on a piece of paper. And so now you can look at it, you can add, you can show, you can read a magazine article. Oh, I'm going to add that in, show it to your experts. They can bring to your doctor or your accountant or whatever. And so they can go, oh, you have forgot about that. Like, don't forget to add that. So they don't have to figure out what's in your head because it's all written down. And so then you worry efficiently and without fear.
Yeah, I like that. You worry efficiently, you plan, you don't have anything catch you by surprise. So that's great. All right, so let's talk about Happy Gilmore movie. So in the Happy Gilmore movie, let me refresh your memory. He was playing golf and there was somebody heckling him. And whenever someone heckled him, he would get all upset and smash his golf course, his golf stick and get all upset. And then he would play terribly. And then someone says, what is your happy place? So then he started imagining that his girlfriend is in a sexy outfit and serving him beer, and his grandmother that he was worried about. He was actually playing golf because she was about to lose her house. That he imagined her, standing by a machine that was, money is coming out and all that. So he put all these things together in his mind. And then whenever this person was upsetting him, he went to that place and it calmed him down and he played well and he actually won. So a minute ago, you were talking about you're standing at a riverbank and here is your worry, your boredom, your guilt, low self-esteem, being overwhelmed. And over there is your happy place, right? So what do you teach people? Is there a happy place over there?
Right. So what I do is show them what the rooms of the happy place are. And what I realized is, I just realized this a couple weeks ago, like those are all things that are achievable. Like if somebody says, go to your happy place, you're like, okay, I'm not sure where that is. But if I say to you, well, figure out how to have more gratitude, figure out how to feel fulfilled, figure out how to anticipate your pleasure. Then you go, oh, well, I can do those things. So I can teach you how to feel fulfilled, or I can teach you how to get cash. I can teach you, how to have pleasure in your life, how to feel contentment. And then you go, okay, well, so there's a river between us. So what's all these obstacles that are in the way? And you're like, oh yeah, there's all these worries and guilt and regret. So one of the things that I teach them is how to have less worry, how to have less guilt, how to have less regret, how to feel better about yourself, how to be less not bored, how to less be less overwhelmed. So when those things go away, that leaves you in, now that you know where your happy place is, that leaves you to go, oh, now I can feel gratitude and not worry about the heckler because I can go, oh, I can play golf and I'm pretty good at it, right? So emotions can get in our way. Like sometimes fear and anger make us bad. Like they're not necessarily helping us out here, right? So when you look at what emotions are set up to be, emotions were designed for humans before we even had language. So we were set up to go, well, what was that? And you're like, fear goes up, right? It goes instantaneously, right? I don't want to go, was that a lion or a tiger? Like, no, I'm running, right? I'll figure out whether it's a lion or a tiger later. Like right now, I'm just running away, right? So it's literally instantaneous. And when I use the analogy, I go, look, fear takes one brain neuron. So there's one brain neuron connection and your fear reaction's gone off. To think about, is it a lion or a tiger? That takes 5, right? So by the time you've thought about it, you're already running away. And I see this with people, it's like they're already having this fear reaction by the time they go, oh, do I really need that? And by the time they figure out, nah, it's not something, like your smoke alarm goes off, right? Mm-hmm. Like, all right, you're jumping up and down. And then it takes you a while and you go, oh, wait, it's just a battery.
The batteries, right?
Right. And so, but it took you, way much longer to figure that out than it did. The fear reaction went like this. Right. And so what happens is our brains are always operating. They're always having thoughts. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But, they're just wandering around. And then all of a sudden a bad one comes out. Oh, there's that bad idea. Right. And now you have this fear reaction. And then that focuses you on that fear on that thing. And then you get stuck in it. And so the goal then is to say, wait, your brain's just, just having different ideas flicker around in your head. So I read this book where he talks about being a surfer, and you're just on a surfboard riding the waves, right? And so when a bad idea comes out, you're like, yeah, okay, there's that bad idea, but it's not really accurate. It's not true. It's a construct in the future. Oh, there's a good idea. Oh, okay, let me steer over that way. Oh, that makes me feel good. All right. So, as a surfer, you just kind of ride the wave.
Right. Right. I like that. So, all right. So what I was trying to get to is, if you were to ask me where my happy place is, I will tell you that I'm waking up in the morning and I'm hearing the ocean, or I'm looking at the mountains. I can't figure out which one is, whether I want to see the mountains or I want to be in the ocean. But it's one of those two. And I'm like, I've got all the happiness and the peace and everything, but I'm in a physical place. So you don't teach your people to, their happy places, like going on vacation with the kids around, or it's all emotions.
Wow. So the happy place, what you're doing is using what we call mindfulness, right? So mindfulness is, I'm directing my brain to look at this, right? And I'm not looking at that, right? And so by shifting your mind, by using you're intentionally shifting to a nice place, what is that happening? Happy Gilmore. Like, so here he's in a bad place where he's feeling bad. He's angry. He's frustrated. His self-esteem is taking a hit. And he's like, I don't want to be in that place. I'm going to use my mindfulness, my intentional behavior, and shift it over to like, oh, my grandmother's going to be in a great place, and my girlfriend's here. And it's like, oh, guess what that does? That makes me feel better. You use the word imagination. It's the same idea. Like, instead of focusing on this bad stuff, I'm going to imagine a good place. Right. So then that makes me feel good. That's that realistic optimism thing. And so we can, using mindfulness, and it turns out that mindfulness has been used a lot of places, right? Like prayer has mindfulness in it. Yoga has mindfulness in it. Buddhism has mindfulness. Like, these are things that have been called different. They've called different things, but they're all the same process, which is we're taking our awareness and shifting it to a place on purpose where we want it to be. And when we do that, it makes us feel better.
Right. Got you. Yes, perfectly. I would use the word visualization, but mindfulness is the same thing.
Right. It's the same thing.
It.
Exactly right. They're all different terms going to the same place, right?
Yeah. Right. I love it.
My book, I actually use the word directed awareness, because I've found that the word consciousness and unconsciousness and subconscious, way too complicated. What the heck does that mean, right? So what I talk about is directed awareness. And directed awareness is, it's literally a part of our brain that is monitoring our brain. So if I said to you, what's 4 plus 4? Your directed awareness would go to that part of your brain that then said 8, and then it would go to your lips and go 8, right? Okay. So you're using your directed awareness. My dog can't do that. Right?
No.
Right.
I love the fact that you put the dog in there, because it makes it brings a visual that can make people understand. Right. Yes. Because only humans.
Directed awareness then. So some things were easy, right? So 4 plus 4, got that, right? If I said to you, it's 8,663 minus 2, you're like, wait, what? Like, that's not it. Write that down in there, right? So then you'd have to find the formula, right?
Right.
Or if I said to you, hey, what's that movie? Who was in Happy Gilmore? You're like, oh, right? So it's part of your directed awareness. It's attached, but yeah, you needed a clip. And you're like, oh, wasn't it? Adam say, oh, yeah, Adam's
right.
It was there, but then there's parts to our brain that aren't attached to our directed awareness. And this gets people into trouble. And so you mentioned trauma earlier with PTSD, and that's where people get into trouble, is because there's memories, like particularly like, say, like I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old grandchild, right? Like, they don't have much directed awareness. It's there a little bit. They have memory, so they go, who I am. They go, oh, good. I'm Go Pops to my granddaughter, right? There was Pops, right? And she was getting confused. So then I was the bald Pop, right? And somehow that transformed into Go Pop. So now I'm Go Pop. I'm like, all right, cool. All right. That's cute. Right. But if we do something together today, she'll remember it. But when she's 20, not going to be there. It's in her brain. So it's in the memory banks, but there's no directed awareness attached to it. And so what happens then is that kind of information affects your decision-making process, but you don't even know why.
Right.
So people with PTSD will have these memories, and this is what I learned. There's a book that I read called The Body Keeps Score, right? And it's about people who have trauma. And what he said is, this is the key. So most of our memories are set up where there's a beginning, a middle, and end. Like, I got on your podcast, we talked, and then it ended, right? And we can tell the story. There's words to it. There's a coherence to it. That's the majority of memories. Traumatic memories, way different. That part of your brain that does that is shut off, literally shut off. And so now what you get is this burst of emotion, this explosion of emotion, and it's usually negative. And you get these scattered sensations. It could be a pic, it could be a visual, it could be a smell or a touch, but there's no coherence to it. There's no words to it. So it just explodes, and you go, right? And you don't even know what it is. Like, your directed awareness doesn't know what it is that set that off. And
Would that be, is that how people get triggered? Is that the word?
Exactly.
Triggered?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so they get triggered, and this explosion goes off, and their directed awareness can't find what it is that's causing which set this off. So yeah, it creates a mess, right? It makes it really hard. So this guy has like 100 pages of how to fix that, right? And so it turns out there's all these incredible techniques that can work really well. So one of the techniques is hypnosis, which is what I've learned how to do. And it's hypnosis with neuro-linguistic programming. So people have heard of EMDR. It's the same kind of thing. And basically you're trying to reframe all those sensations into something that's more coherent and more positive. So I had a patient who had been beaten up and felt horrible about it. She was victimized and in pain. And it went on for 20 years that she would have panic attacks every time she saw anybody that looked like this guy, right? And so we did this process. And when she was going through the memory, well, here's what she remembered as we're under a neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis. She goes, the guy was beating me up, and then I passed out. And when I woke up, he was actually beating up one of my coworkers. And so she had to decide, do I just stay pretending like I'm dead, or do I get up and try to help this other coworker? So she decides to get up and help the other coworker. So she calls somebody, and she distracts the guy, and the police come. So when we got done with the session, I looked at her and I said, so tell me about this. You got beat up. And she's like, oh, right. And I go, well, let's reframe this, right? I said, you were a hero.
Yes,
you were a hero.
You didn't lay up to play dead. That's true.
Yes, you risked your life. You got up. You couldn't play dead. You got up. You helped the other person. You risked yourself. That's what heroes do. It's not that they're not afraid. It's that they go past their fear and do something to help somebody else. So you're a hero. And it was amazing to watch. Her whole body changed. So now when I say, hey, remember that time when you gave up? Yeah. Like, the memory's there. Like, oh, yeah, I remember that. But now the emotion is, yeah, I was a hero.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So it was nice.
Yeah, reframing. Yes. One of the things that I talk about all the time is change the way you think about a thing, and the thing you think of will change. Dr. Dwayne Dwyer made that statement powerful. That's amazing. Wow, Dr. Sprouse. This is a great conversation. I learned so much from you. Love this conversation. So tell us about your book.
It's called Highway to Your Happy Place, A Roadmap to Less Stress. And it's on Amazon, and it's on Barnes & Noble. I just finished the audiobook, so that should be coming out in the next 2 weeks. And so I'm like, because what I'm learning is audiobooks are the new, that's the new biggest.
Because
it's like,
people listen to audiobooks when they're doing things. And that's how I consume books. I walk and I listen to audiobooks. So I will definitely go and pick up yours. I do have a book by my bed all the time, but I don't get far in it because its purpose is to help me sleep.
But you gotta sleep. Yeah, there you go. Now here's the question I have for you, right? So the person who's doing the audiobook, so I actually did it, right? So my wife and I had gone to a Shakespeare play, and the guy who played King Lear, he comes out on stage and he starts talking. I'm like, oh, your voice is amazing. Like, I want him to do my audiobook, right? But I was like, yeah, it turned out that wasn't going to happen. So what I've learned is that people want to hear me talk because they want to know who I am, right? So the guy I do the taping, and the guy calls me back, says, okay, we're done. And he goes, hey, we got this new thing that we can add a soundtrack to it. Like there's music behind it, and there's sound effects and stuff like that. And I'm like, ooh, really? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It was like, ooh, right? I don't know. So he sends me some examples. I'm like, well, right. But then I'm like, wait, here's what I realized. Oh my gosh, we're back in the 1930s with radio, right? That's what radio did. Like they did an audio book with sound effects, right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, I haven't had one of those. I haven't had an audiobook with tracks, but I've listened to audiobooks where there's one book that was really interesting where the guy would read the book and then at the end, the read a chapter and the end of the chapter, we'd have an interview talking about the chapter. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do with audiobooks right now.
Yeah.
But I actually do prefer to hear the person because then it lends a bit more to it. Right?
That's what I learned. That's why I did it. I was like,
yes,
yeah.
Right. It lends a bit more to it if it's you personally reading the book. So, and you can also throw in things that maybe someone is just reading it. It adds a different level to me.
Well, yeah, you can
with an audiobook.
So what I'm learning, I'm preparing to do a TED Talk. I haven't got accepted yet, but I'm preparing to talk. And what you learn is that as a species, like we had thousands of years of non-written language, right? Like we didn't write things down for only like the last 3,000 years, right? So before that, everything was oral history. So our brains are actually set up to listen to stories. And so we're used to listening to oral. We're used to listening to the story. And so when you're doing your TED Talk, what I was trained is make it a story because that's how people hold on to the information.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And that's my happy place. Walking and listening to life stories, it is a 10. I love stories of people's lives. I just love it.
I was on the podcast the other day, and these women are like, I was kidnapped for a month and raped and blah, blah, blah. But now I'm strong. And some other lady was like, I was looking in the mirror and I was crying and I just had no identity. And then I pulled it together. And I'm like, my story is boring compared to that. I'm like, yeah, I was a doctor and now I'm an author. I was like, I gotta add some drama to this story, right? Well,
you're adding something. Yeah, you're adding some things to it. Your missions trip and karaoke and and all the things that you do. And
I've had some trauma in my life. It's yeah. I went in the web guy talk about a 55-gallon drum of stress, right? Yeah, no, I've had my own stresses because I learned. I'm sitting at a dinner table and this guy's trying to sell me life insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And this was like 20 years ago, and the phone rings and I pick it up and there's a nurse on the other end going, yeah, Mrs. So-and-so's having chest pain and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, well, did you try some Tums? Like, yeah, we gave her Tums and it went away. I'm like, okay, well, just give her some more Tums and give her some Antec or whatever, right? And I hang up the phone. And the guy across the table from me goes, wait, did you just talk about somebody with having chest pain? And you said, yeah, take Tums and did it? I'm like, no. It's like, right. But then I realized as a doctor, literally every decision you're making is a life and death decision for somebody. Yeah. And it could be $1 million decision because you could get sued. So literally every decision you make is $1 million decision. Yeah. And talking about stress. And you're like, yeah, like when you're dealing with somebody's grandmother or their wife or their kid, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on you that as a doctor, you're trained so you don't think about it as much. But no, it's a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, that's constructive worry because if you're a doctor and you think about every time you make a decision, someone's going to sue you, that's worry ridiculously, right? So
that's exactly right. You can't you learn. I've had doctor colleagues they did do that and they didn't last very long because it's not a good place to be, right?
No, exactly. So wow. All right. So that's amazing. Listen, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I learned a few things, which is why I love this work. I learned a few things. So your happy place. The way we started off really strong, talking about the obstacles in your way to your happy place and how you can remove those obstacles by reframing and putting things into place. If you're worried, right? Putting things into place, set things up so that you can worry less and try to be in your happy place. So this is really good information. I will have a transcript of my conversation with Dr. Sprouse on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will also link out to his book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Now, Dr. Sprouse, are you on social media at all?
Yes. So my website is thelessstressdoc.com. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Those are the two main things that I do.
And what's your handle on Instagram and Facebook?
Less stress doc.
Less stress. Okay. All right. Awesome. I would also link out to you on Instagram and Facebook. I put a marketing clip on Instagram and Facebook of our conversation and also tag you on it. So this conversation was so beautiful, guys, that you should definitely pick up a copy of Dr. Sprouse's book. If you want a hard copy, pick up one. I'm going to definitely get the audiobook because I am sure there's a lot of good information in there in order to get to your happy place and stay in your happy place and be fulfilled. He gave us a lot of little nuggets that we want to expand on, right? So it's good information. That's why I brought him on the show. Connect with him on Instagram and Facebook. I'm pretty sure he gives, some good content in there too. So, thank you very much for being on the show, Dr. Sprouse. This was really good information.
If you can say one last thing, this is what I say to people. Please don't resign yourself to living a stressed out life. It doesn't have to be like that. There are ways that it can be better. So don't resign yourself. Get a book. I don't care if it's mine or somebody else. Do something because you don't have to live a stressed out life.
That's true. That's good information. Stress kills. So find ways to become less stressed. I love your website. The Less Stress Doc. I love it. But it's not only, we're not saying to have less stress. One of the things I love about this conversation is we're saying you're going to have less stress and you're going to get somewhere. You know what I mean? Yes. Where you want to get to is your happy place, right? That's where you want to get to. You don't just want to remove the stress, right? You want to get to your happy place. So I absolutely love it. So thanks again. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. We've been transforming your mind today on stress and happiness, your happy place. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Sprouse, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right. And until next time, namaste.